trying to figure out where you should move abroad can be difficult. A quick Google search will return a ton of those best place for Americans lists. But the thing is, they never include us. They never include Black folks in whatever methodology they're using. A YouTube search will fare slightly better. For instance, over on the Black Excellence channel, they have a video called 5 Favorite Countries of African Americans Have Moved to. So that's definitely an improvement, but that doesn't tell me if those countries are good for someone like me, a Black woman. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I reached out to Black expat women all around the world to get their opinions as to which countries are the best for us. That's what we're talking about today. But first, if you're new to this channel, welcome. Welcome to the party. I think you are going to like it here. So be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you are the first to know when there is a new video. My name is 𝗩𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗍, but probably more well known as Picky Girl Travels the World. I am a coach. I help Black women master their money so they can realize their dreams of travel or moving abroad. If you're thinking about moving out of the US, you'll want to pick up my ultimate move abroad checklist. I'll link it here as well as in the video description.
Okay. Hi, I am Zoe Smith. I am originally from the UK, but based between Grenada and London. I run a platform called the Exodus Collective that's all about helping folks in the diaspora relocate to the Caribbean, so Grenada and all the other islands. And I think Grenada specifically is a great place for Black women expats because the quality of life is just so amazing. It's safe, it has beautiful beaches, it has great weather, and it's predominantly a Black country. So yeah, it ticks many boxes for me, and I hope it will do for you too.
Wow. Wow. How long have you been in Grenada?
So I've been going back and forth from Grenada probably since 2015. I'm currently in the UK because the travel situation here is just absolutely insane. But hopefully I should be back on a flight in 2 weeks. So yeah.
Awesome. And was this your first move abroad?
No. So I first moved abroad when I was 20. I went to work in Verona in Italy for a Russian family as an au pair. I studied Italian at university and always wanted to live there. I did that. And then my first job after university was living in Milan. I'm working for an Italian fashion company. And then I had stints in Ibiza. So yeah, I've traveled around a bit, primarily in Europe. But yeah, since 2015, reconnecting to the Caribbean and Grenada in particularly has been my thing.
Wow, you were an au pair to a Russian family. I
know. I wouldn't. They were lovely, and Verona's a beautiful city. But yeah, I think it was the dynamic of being like the Black nanny. It was like, yeah.
And there was a hot second when I actually toyed with the idea of doing au pair work as a way to live somewhere. And then that very thing, I was like, I don't know if I want to be the Black nanny, even though they may not see it that way. I am familiar with that.
Yeah, I think, no, honestly, if you're like 19, 20 and you want to have a stint of being abroad, being an au pair is amazing because everything is set up for you. You get your little bit of money, your accommodation is paid for. But for me, yeah, just the looks, I realized like halfway in, actually, no, I'm not. I'm not going to be able to do this. But it was a good trial run for having my own kids.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how did you, of all the places in the Caribbean, how did you arrive at Grenada?
So that one was easy. My parents are originally from Grenada. So they left the island when they were like children, maybe 8 or 7 years old. So I'd always been visiting the island, but as a kid and as a teenager, I hated it. I was like, no one knows where it is. It's not luxurious. I want to be from somewhere cool. And it's bizarre. I could never have imagined myself being there. And literally, I studied Italian at university. Italian was what I was passionate about, and that's where I spent all of my time. But I think getting a little bit older, valuing quality of life, and especially having children, wanting to slow down a little bit and be somewhere where I was just somewhere more nurturing, really appealed to me after years living in London and in other cities in Europe. So yeah, that's why Grenada.
I find it hilarious that you hated going there.
Massively. I didn't like it at all. I even tried at one point. I remember I went when I was 18 and I tried to change my flight so I could come back. I was like, I hate this place. You know, the typical moody teenager. It's like, I hate it. I don't want to be here. I want to be in Italy. I was awful. Really bad.
Now, since your parents are from there, do you have dual citizenship?
I do. So I applied for dual citizenship in 2014. And what's handy about the Caribbean, and one of the things that I encourage people to do, is that generally once you have citizenship for one 𝗥𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀 island, it gives you permission to work in others. So if I wanted to, say, be based in Jamaica and work, or even to be self-employed or Trinidad or wherever, I would have that capacity by virtue of having a Grenadian passport. So definitely it's something that I encourage people to do sooner rather than later.
And you said one 𝗥𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀 country. For the uninitiated, what is that?
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to try and give an analogy that might not work either, but the CARICOM is like the European Union of the Caribbean,
Yeah.
or the OAS. OAS is the
Organization of American States.
Yeah, that I'm glad you knew what it stood for. But it's like the Caribbean version of that. So they're like trade agreements, freedom of movement. So I think there's 15, and they're generally the English-speaking islands that were formerly British colonies, but there are a few French ones that have some arrangement. But yeah, 15 islands that you have freedom of movement across, which is pretty amazing.
And I know that depending on your other passport, if it's one that has a lot of restrictions on it, I know sometimes visas are easier to get if you have a passport from a CARICOM country.
Yeah, so like there's this whole movement of Bitcoin and or crypto people who are applying for second passports. Often if they're looking to give up their US one for tax reasons. So yeah, that definitely, I think even Grenada gives you the opportunity to be able to work in the US if you don't have an American passport through some visa arrangement. But generally those passports start at around like 150, 200,000 US. So it's really for people who are kind of motivated by tax reasons, which is a great position to be in. But I think there are other sells for that island other than not paying tax.
What advice do you have to other Black women who are considering a move to Grenada or the Caribbean in general?
I would say do your research, but first and foremost, understand why you're moving. As someone who's moved to other destinations, I think there's nothing worse than getting somewhere and realizing, this isn't it for me, or what I thought moving would fix is still there. So really taking that time to do the inner work. What does quality of life look like for you? What does community look like for you? So that you're really clear as to what your criteria are, and then using that information to choose your destination or even to try out your destination. Because for me, Grenada is great. For other people, they might be, it's too small, there's no Amazon Prime, there aren't enough shopping malls. So really be clear on your list and what success looks like for you when it comes to feeling at home, and do it that way. Ignore what looks hot on Instagram, because that's absolutely not what it's about. It's about you and your crew and what makes you happy. So I would kind of do it back to front, I would suggest.
Excellent advice, because that is something I hear from my clients a lot. They're very much concerned, well, what if I get there and I don't like it? And I'm of the mind that, this is one of the reasons you make sure you have a little FU money or a little oh shit money on the side, is in case you do get there. Like, you can't know everything. And if you do get there and it's not what you wanted, you have the freedom to move on somewhere else. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think there's so much research that you can do in advance. There's loads of stuff. When like every week I do interviews with people who've moved to different Caribbean islands. So you can find what someone else's trial and tribulations have been beforehand. You can reach out to people on Instagram. There are so many Facebook groups. So yeah, kind of find out as much as possible beforehand. So you can just cross places off your list. Because quite often people say, I want to move to the Caribbean. I'm like, great, which of the like 15 plus islands? Because there are many and they're very different. So yeah, having that checklist, be picky, I would
We're
say.
all about being picky on this
girl
channel.
travel.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
There you
And
go.
if somebody wanted to see those interviews that you do, where do they go?
So on YouTube, if you just type in the Exodus Collective, you can find us there, or also on Instagram, the Exodus Collective. Yeah, it kind of spans all Caribbean countries with the exception of Suriname, the Bahamas, and Guyana. But all other 15 we've done, and some of them quite a few times, because Jamaica's just huge and there are so many amazing people there. But yeah, I think that's a really cool place to start.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. I would obviously promote Grenada because I think it's the best, but yeah.
Hey, that's okay. We can be biased on this channel.
Hi, hello. Char here from the Expat app. I'm the founder and creator of the Expat community for the Black community that lives abroad. And we currently have a community of we just reached 1.5K members actually this week, representing over 110 countries and territories across the globe. So very, very excited to be a part of this discussion today. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and I've been living abroad for over 3 years now. Originally in London, lived abroad there for about 3 years. Now in Lisbon, it's been about half a year. And I love both cities. I would highly recommend both Lisbon and London for Black women, specifically because these are both spaces where I found myself as a Black woman, not only accepted, but cultivated in a way where, you can grow whatever it is you're trying to do, like personally, professionally, creatively. It fosters that environment. And not just because of the diversity of the people that are there, but also the strong community of other Black female expats. So I think that's something that's really important to note. And it's been very critical in me feeling welcome in these environments and also excited and having things to do, having a sense of fellowship with other people, and making sure that I actually feel like I'm growing while I'm abroad, and not just stagnant. I've seen my creativity blossom in these environments because I'm actually surrounded by quite a lot of creatives, specifically here in Lisbon, which was much of a surprise to me. I did not anticipate there would be so many creatives out here of all races. It's quite, to me, a space for like digital nomads, creatives, and people who really want to maybe step away from the corporate 9-to-5 work environment. I see Lisbon as a place that fosters that, because you have, a relatively affordable cost of living for Western Europe. You have the great weather. So socially, you have all these activities and opportunities to meet people. They have a very strong internet, it's kind of like consistent. So for people who are working digitally, it's really important to have strong internet access that's consistent. And I also like the fact that they have little spaces where you can go and do like co-working. So even if you are abroad by yourself, you can still find community as well in these little spaces. So to me, Lisbon kind of checks all the boxes. And then of course, London, most people are already familiar with. London kind of has everything. So the only, I think, maybe downside to London is just the cost of living, which may prohibit a lot of people from being a creative, right? Because you kind of need a more solid source of income. And that's the only reason why I would say maybe for someone, depending on if you're starting out in your career or don't have a real strong source of income yet, then you may want to pick a Lisbon over a London until you can afford the high cost of living in London.
Okay. Now you said you've been in Lisbon for, you say 6 months?
Yeah, about half a year now.
Okay. And how long did you live in London?
For over 3 years.
Okay.
3 years, yeah.
Okay. And was London your first move abroad?
Yes, it was. My family's originally from Jamaica, but I grew up and was born in the US. So when it came time for me I kind of always wanted to live abroad. London was an easy pick because I was working in financial services at the time, and it's a financial services center. They speak English. I was nervous about moving somewhere where they don't know the language. Where I didn't know the language. And so London was kind of like, it ticked all the boxes for me. And then when it came time to pick Lisbon, are another place, because London was too expensive once I decided to branch out into entrepreneurship and just to be creative, you know, and I needed somewhere that could accommodate my budget, but I still want to be really comfortable. So being in London would have meant I would have had to really be in like a studio and not comfortable really, and not being able to say city center. I'm like, I want to say city center. I want a proper apartment, you know, place to live. So as I started looking around at the different options, Lisbon just kept creeping higher and higher up the list. So it's met my expectations, actually exceeded my expectations so far.
I visited Lisbon and was immediately struck because I've hit all the major places in Western Europe, and I was immediately struck by it being the first place in Europe I'd ever been where the Black and the brown people were part of the community, not just existing on the fringe. Like I saw Black and brown business owners, versus just Black and brown people selling counterfeit purses.
Exactly. I know exactly what you mean. And that is, yeah, like that's important to me. And here, as you said, we were just at a Black owned establishment last night, you know, a social B for anyone who's familiar with. And it's just nice to be in a space where like we are a part of the community, not like just working there, you know. And it's, I mean, you still have class and racial issues. I think any country you go to, you'll experience that. But the good thing is that I feel at home here. I feel very welcome. That's why one of the reasons why I chose it. The energy here felt great. It's nice to walk around and see people who look like you. It's quite a decent Black population here from the various colonies, I mean, places that they colonized. So, you know, Mozambique and Angola and Brazil. It's quite a lot of us here. So you will not stick out like a sore thumb like you might in other parts.
You said you moved to London because you didn't have to worry about language. One of the things that's holding me back, and I've said this more than once about Lisbon, is the thought of having to learn Portuguese. Because when I was there, I struggled just to remember how to say like thank you the proper way. And people, oh, it's like Spanish, because at the time I was living in Honduras, so I had a minuscule amount of Spanish. No, ma'am. So how did you handle that?
Well, for me, I didn't know any Portuguese before I came here, except for like basic words like hello, of course, from trips to Brazil. For me, I took a class. I signed up for a class with, if anyone's familiar with Sid's platform, Driven Spice, she offers a language course. And that course was really helpful because it's live. We had an instructor, we had playback sessions, study hall. And so I think the best way to pick up the language and to get over the fear of not knowing it is to really immerse yourself, because you don't have any other choice, I think, if you want to get around. But with that being said, in Lisbon, at least, I can't speak for other places outside of Lisbon, I'm able to get around knowing English because they're quite graceful here, in the sense of people are willing to help you if you need help, whether it's grocery store, setting up a bank account, just doing, you know, those everyday things that you may have a challenge with if you don't know the language. They've been extremely graceful here. And a lot of people speak English. So that's how I've been able to get by, set up my apartment, and all these other like key things you have to do to get settled. But the goal for me is to learn the language. And I think that depending on your learning style, the in-class immersion format works well for me. Yeah, but it is, I won't lie. I mean, there are some occasions where I'm completely like, I have no idea what I'm trying to order food from a certain restaurant. And, you know, like I said, the further out you go from the city, you may have some challenges with language. Like a lot of pointing and stuff like that. You'll make do.
You have any advice for other Black women considering a move either to Lisbon or to London?
I tell people, really, I know there's a fear, there's the unknown and all of that, but it is so worth it. I think to remove yourself, specifically for Black women in the US, my peace of mind, it has skyrocketed through the roof. I can't even explain the lightness that I feel mentally being abroad and being somewhere where I'm accepted and I can grow. And I have space now for creativity, you know, where I didn't have that before, dealing with microaggressions and all these other things that weigh so heavily in the US on us. So I encourage Black women to choose themselves, to trust themselves in their journey. Even if you are scared, do it scared. Like, it's okay. That just means you're doing something that you probably should be doing because you're you're growing in some way. So it can be a bit overwhelming and a daunting experience, but just reach out to the various networks. I mean, you have your platform, of course, which it has a plethora of information. Reach out to these expat groups and communities. Even the travel communities have been phenomenal. These are all places where you don't have to do it alone, right? You have community, you even have expat coaches. So think about these resources and don't feel like you have to do it all overnight either. It's a journey. I think my second time going abroad, I made the decision in 2017. I financially really strongly started putting money away for it in 2018, and it wasn't until end of 2019 that I actually left. So it's not an overnight thing. It takes time, but make a plan, leverage your community, and don't let the fear hold you back.
And that's why I love your app, because it gives people women who are considering making this move, and you kind of don't know where to start. You don't know what your questions are. You don't know, how do I find other people who are doing this? And you go on the Expat app and that's where those people are.
Yeah, and just for anyone who doesn't know, part of what I think the value add of even using the app or getting on there is that we have a directory. So you can literally type in the search bar the location, and it'll pull up profiles for everyone who has that location in a profile. And then and even if we have articles that we've done in expat chats, I interview Black expats abroad, and I, just hear their stories, and they provide practical tips. So you can kind of it's like a directory for like which Facebook groups you might want to check out, where are people at. Just take advantage of it. It's a tool for you all. It's free to download and use in both Apple and Google Play Store. So whether you have Apple or Android, iPhone or Android. So I encourage it, because that's what it's for. My goal was really just to provide a resource, because I know how much, for me, when I was doing my search for my second country we were brought to, I'm like, why aren't we the default? I hated having to navigate through some of these expat groups where like I had to put like Afro here if I was looking for like a barber or something, or, Black female perspective. It was really hard to find that. And so I'm like, you know what? Let's just create a space where we are the default. Our Blackness is the default. Okay. You don't have
to love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Well, thank you so much, Char.
Well, thank you. This is a beautiful platform, and I love your content. It's been great having you part of the community. So I really.
Okay, my name is 𝗁𝗍𝗄𝗎𝗄. I am the host of the Road to Inspire, where I inspire people to get outside of their box and live a life of adventure and wonder. I am originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am currently living in Manta, Ecuador. I just came from Cuenca, Ecuador. And I think it's a great place for Black women expats to travel because, one, it's safe. It is very safe. I've been solo here for over a month, and I've met some really nice people. So the people are very friendly. It's a really safe place, and it's very walkable. That's a big thing for me. So that I'm not constantly having to get into a taxi for every single thing, because that gets confusing. So it's very walkable in the way that you can walk down the street and get just about anything. So restaurants, drugstores, all of that good stuff.
Ecuador is not a country we hear or we hadn't heard a lot about. Do you find that you need to have a lot of Spanish there?
I don't have any Spanish. So I have my Google Translator app, and I have Airbnb hosts. And when I get confused, I ask people. And by asking people, that's how I have made friends. So people are very friendly in that way, to where if you need help with something, they may not understand you, but they will patiently wait for you to put it in Google Translate and show it to them. So no, I wouldn't say short term that you need a lot of Spanish, but if you're planning on being here long term, I would say definitely worth it. I guess that's wherever you choose to live, to learn the language. But I've made doctor's appointments here in The doctors did not speak my language. They didn't speak English, and I did not speak Espanol. So Google Translated was, and hey, everything went well.
I think that willingness and that desire to be of use and to be of help to you, I think that I'm going to generalize and say that may be a Latin American thing. Because when I lived in Asia, that was not the case. But here, because I'm in Mexico City, here, when I was in Honduras, the few other Latin American countries I visited, you know, people, with the exception of Colombia, where they kept looking at me like, why don't you speak Spanish? Because I guess until I opened my mouth, they thought I was local, and then they were very frustrated with me when I didn't. But outside of that, I have found that people very much, they're like, you know, what do you need? I will try and help you the best I can. Why did you choose Ecuador?
I really can't say that I have a particular rhyme or reason as to why I chose Ecuador, but I have been praying and thinking about, okay, I knew that I was going to leave. I knew that I was going to pack up my whole house and leave. And I said, but where though? Where do I go? Ecuador came up and I'm like, yeah, Ecuador. So here I am.
Nothing wrong with that. Is there much of a Black expat community there?
Ecuador is pretty big in the sense, and I know that there are some expats here. And it's pretty big in the sense that there could be pockets of people in different cities. I have not personally met a lot of those people, only because if I'm going to travel to another country, I want to meet the people that live there, not the people that are from the US like me. I want to be engulfed in the culture. So I have met some people, you know, people from Canada, someone who is Ecuadorian who lives in Michigan, and just people who actually live here in Ecuador, and befriended them that way. So yeah, as far as the expat community, I know that there is one, but I don't think that they have cliques and packs except for the ones online.
What advice do you have for other Black women who are considering a move to Ecuador? Or now that they've seen this video, they're like, hadn't thought about Ecuador before.
I will say this, because this is pretty much a hot topic amongst expats, Black women. I have never met so many men who are so freely and willing to help me and be my tour guide. And that has been the consistency since I have been here in Ecuador. They are so kind, just so friendly, so hospitable. So I would say to anybody, I'm highlighting the one city that I like, and that's Cuenca, Ecuador. One, because it's clean, and because they have restaurants and I don't want to cook. And it's very modernized, so that you don't feel like, oh, you're in this foreign country. So I would just say step out on it, even if people, you know, do a short-term trip. My trip has been 6 weeks now, and I'm headed back to the States. But even just a short-term trip is definitely worth it. The bigger cities opposed to the smaller towns, unless you like to be secluded and by yourself, I would definitely step out and do it. Yeah.
I think you might have just sold a lot of folks on Ecuador with that comment.
That's kind of like all over Ecuador. The men are just very kind. And I mean, I've met people from Venezuela, and, you know, even when walking into restaurants, you meet people, you make friends. So it's a very friendly place.
Okay, let's expound on that a little bit. What are you doing to meet friends? I am an introvert, so I don't know how to meet people in English. I don't know how to meet people in my own country, let alone somewhere else in another language.
Really, it comes by me not knowing what to do and asking them what to do. Like literally, or being consistent in a particular restaurant and always seeing the same server. You know, these are like at public places. The one friend that I met, and these are all people that are younger than me, old enough to, I'm old enough probably to be their mom. I have sons, some of these kids' age. But one guy, he was a policeman. And I said, I didn't know if he spoke English. All I knew is he was safe because he was a policeman. I pulled up my Google Translate. No, I didn't even pull up Google Translate. I pulled up the app because it's a zoo taxi. And I'm just like pointing like, how do I get this taxi to come? And then he putting it in. And literally this was during where there was a curfew. So it took like an hour and he waited with me for an hour for the taxi to come. So it's just really for me, just when I need help or just being consistent in a particular place.
You just described an interaction with a police officer and you said, I knew he was safe because he was the police. That right there, my friend, is revolutionary. Because I don't know, I can't speak for you, but I know for me, that is not a thought that went through my mind when I was in the United States.
That is true. That is true. The US, the vibe is definitely different. It's different.
So that, I think that says a whole lot about the shift in the quality of life when we as Black women can step out of the US and explore other places. I think that just says a whole lot. Thank you so much. I appreciate you giving me some of your time.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Keena Williams. I am originally from Memphis, Tennessee. Spent the last 20 so years living in Oxnard, California. I am, or was, an aerospace engineer. And I own a small travel company called 𝗥𝗲𝘀𝗄𝑚 LLC. And I am currently living in South Africa. Been here for almost 2 years. It has been a great experience for me. I came here, wanted to go somewhere else, but ended up in South Africa, and it has been a great experience living here. The visa is easy to obtain. Cost of living is great, great culture, great food, and it's a place that I could probably see myself being here for much longer than what I am. Currently a great place for opportunities for entrepreneurs.
So you've been there. It's hard to believe it's been almost 2 years, but I've been back in Mexico for a year. So yeah, that adds up. Now, was this your first move abroad?
Yes, it was. I came here in November 2019. I was originally planning to move to Malaysia and decided that this was a place that I could work. I was engaged with someone. That engagement broke before I could get to this continent. But I decided, let me just come here anyway. Had a plethora of friends that were living here that were able to give me the lay of the land. And I just decided, let me just come here anyway.
Okay. And something that comes up a lot in circles is a concern about racism or how Black Americans will be received. How has that been in South Africa?
Well, in South Africa, as you know, this country, I would say they still have some remnants of apartheid. It's only been, I believe, 26, 27 years since this country has experienced their democracy here. So they're still in their infancy stage. However, things such as racism, obviously it's illegal here. Me personally, I have not experienced any incidents of racism. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen to people, but me personally, I have not experienced it. I think because I don't have a job here, I don't work here. So I am away from maybe things that may happen in a working environment that could be part of it. But on the whole, I think this country has done a pretty good job trying to get people to see that, you know, we're sorry for what happened during this time. Let us all band together and work to make this a better country for everyone.
And you've not had any issues because you're American?
There is privilege in being an American. I think that people probably see that more than they see me as a Black American. They say, oh, you're American. That's what they hear. They're not necessarily looking at my skin color first. It's basically, you're American. And they want to, oh, my favorite show is this. Do you know this person? Like, no, I never met this person.
Is there anything that you wish you had known before you moved there?
I will say that a vacation experience is not the same as a living experience. I've been to South Africa every year since 2014, and I've gotten to the point where, oh, this place looks like it's great, or what have you. And it is a great place. However, there are things that once you get here, you realize, ooh, this is not what I thought. Not that it's bad things. There may be maybe certain things about the culture that you don't understand, but you learn to adapt to that. And that's something that I don't think I would have known just as a tourist. If I'm only here for a week of tourism, there's no way I'm going to see what I've seen in the short time that I've been here. And I'm still seeing things.
So, okay, this is another question that comes up a lot, or a debate. Do you feel like, because you visited the place you ended up living as an expat multiple times before moving there, do you feel that was necessary, or that was better than if you had just done research and moved there?
That's a really great question. A really great question. I will say in my case, although that I've been here many times, I think that helped because I could determine, okay, well, this is the neighborhood that I want to live in. This place has the amenities that I'm looking for. I think because I was here, I've been here many times, and the person, oddly, that I was engaged to helped me tremendously when it was time for me to make a decision on where to live, as far as what neighborhood to live in, what amenities I needed to be close to. This is close to public transportation or whatever way that I was going to get around. So I think coming to a place location, coming to somewhere first is probably preferred, although many times people can't do that. But if you can't do that, I would recommend at least maybe staying somewhere for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, a month before you make a final decision on this is the place that you're going to live.
See, and I've never visited any of the places I've ever lived. And, you know, some of them worked out better than others. I'll be the first to admit that.
Well, I will say that I actually rented my apartment in South Africa before I even saw it in person, because it was a place that I wanted to move to that particular area, move to that building. And I was noticing that as soon as an apartment would become available, it was gone within a week. So I decided, I've since moved from that apartment, but that was what it was.
Okay, and so, because that's something I would advise people never to do. So my next question is, what precautions did you take to make sure that you were not getting ripped off?
I went with reputable companies. I actually used in South Africa, they have a lot of, I guess you could say, like standardized websites to find housing. They have even something here similar to Craigslist called Gumtree. I didn't use Gumtree. I used sites like Pt.1. These are their standard regulation websites. Found a property, contacted the agent, did a lot of crazy stuff, but you
were in contact with the agent. You did not like wire money directly to a landlord or something like that.
No, I actually wired money to the company directly. They sent me all of the official paperwork. I had to sign papers. I had to submit a credit report, which doesn't really matter because this South Africa is not the same as and the States. And I actually wired my rent directly to the company. I had all the receipts. Everything was legit. I don't recommend doing that unless you are 100% sure and you're working directly with an agent that you can actually track down, in which this lady had her, I guess, the realtor numbers, she had a phone number, contact, email, and it was all with the company. I had no Gmail accounts, no Yahoo accounts, office phone number. Her picture was on the company's website. So I knew that I was actually dealing with a real person, not someone, sitting in scam land.
Yeah. So what advice would you give other Black women who are considering South Africa for their expat home?
Number one, what type of visa are you coming on? Because that can determine a lot of different things. I'm on a retirement visa, which means I cannot work here. However, you can ask for work provision. So that's an option. They also have a 3-year extended visitor's visa. They also have critical skills visa. There's so many different ways to come here. So that's one thing I would look at first. Also determine, where do you want to live? Do you want the beach life of Durban, Cape Town? Do you want the hostile and socialite city of Johannesburg, which is where I am located? Or do you want the rural country of Mpumalanga? So you have so many options of what you want to do. There are a lot of connections here. There are a lot of Black women here from the States and some of the Caribbean areas that can give you a lot of information on how to find the best doctors, the best dentists, where to get your hair done. So make connections with people. Once you hear that accent, hey, where are you? Are you here? That's what I've been doing pretty much since I've been here.
Now, you mentioned about permission to work. I know you don't work there, but from what you've been able to glean, how realistic is it for somebody to immigrate there and work?
You're hitting these heavy questions today. Well, I will tell you this. Of the Black expats that I know in this area, and there's a lot, very few of them work here. They have maybe companies in the States. They have multiple, I really hate this term, multiple streams of income. I hate that term, but they have multiple streams of income. They may be using their savings here. They could be, wealth babies. I don't know, various things, but there are very few people here that work here. One person I know, she works for the city of Johannesburg. Another person works for a United States agency here, and there's a few people that work for the embassy. So in this particular area, you could come here and find a job, but I would recommend something that's in a large company, like some of the national banks here. I think Ford is here, Old Mutual, and other larger companies. But in this particular area, I don't know too many that actually work. Now, we do have people here that have started their own businesses here. So that's another option where you can start a business, come in with a business visa, hire some local talent, and then that's another way to I guess gain a living here.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.
So thanks for having me, Adelia. I am Anne-Marie Archer, and my company and website are Bald Girl Will Travel. You can find me on YouTube at Bald Girl Will Travel. What I do is that I help my clients leave hostile work environments, as well as just workplaces that don't serve them, and transition into lives that allow them to live as authentic, unapologetic, and free human beings. And I also work with people who want to move abroad, especially to Mexico. I have a lot of people that contact me to get advice about that. And I am the founder of the Black Women Coach Directory, which will launch this summer, where I will connect Black women with Black women coaches to help them also redesign the best lives possible. Moved to Mexico from Washington, D.C.
Okay, so what makes Mexico such a great place for Black women?
I think Mexico is a great place for Black women expats because it is extremely welcoming. I think because of how close Mexico is to the United States, it's a much easier transition. For example, where I live in San Miguel de Allende, there's only a 1-hour time difference. So for someone like me who is a location independent person who works remotely, it makes it very easy for me to speak to my clients and to work. The culture itself is extremely beautiful, and the country is incredibly beautiful and interesting. I found it settling here has been extremely easy, and I know that's not always the case in other places. Even though I don't speak Spanish, I am learning Spanish because I live in a country which, little known history fact, has the most expats from the United States of any country in the world. It's been a pretty easy place to transition into. So it's pretty welcoming. People are extremely welcoming. I feel very safe in Mexico. I haven't been anywhere in Mexico where I felt unsafe, and I feel especially safe here in San Miguel. So that's another reason why I think it's a really great place for Black women expats.
Now, you said you don't speak Spanish.
I do not.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, and 5 being fluent and 1 is only being able to say like hola, where would you fall?
I'm probably a 3.
Okay.
I'm probably a 3. I feel like maybe a 2.5. I'm very self-critical. So I feel I'm able to have basic conversations with people, and I can, ask for directions, order food, have basic interactions, but I'm still not a place where I feel like I can have full conversations in Spanish only. So I would say about 2.5, 3.
And that lack of Spanish did not hinder your ability to get accommodation and that sort of thing?
No, it has not hindered my ability to do anything in Mexico. I found that even in places where English is minimal, and some of the places I have been, that has been the case, people are patient. So they'll let you, take the time you need to get on Google Translate and figure out what you need to say. They don't get impatient. They don't get upset with you. So, and they help you, as much, a lot of times I find a lot of people understand English, even though they may not be able to speak it. So it makes the interactions a lot easier.
Now, was this move to Mexico, was this your first move abroad?
It was my first move abroad as an adult, not my first time being abroad, obviously, but living abroad as an adult. I lived abroad as a child. So I've lived in another country before.
What is something that people get wrong about Mexico?
That they think it's unsafe. It's probably the biggest thing I think people get wrong, is that, anytime people hear about Mexico, the first thing they ask me is about my safety. And I understand why that is. But I find it to be a very safe country and a very safe place to be as a woman.
Is there something you wish you had known about living in Mexico as a Black woman? Like, you wish you had known that before you made your move?
I can't think of anything, because I spent a lot of time doing research before I actually did it. And I did come here and visit over a 4-month period before I actually moved. So I kind of did my homework. So I can't really think of anything since I've been here that has occurred that I felt was like completely unexpected. I will say that life is a lot slower here, and you have to have more patience. You have to be willing to wait for things. But that was something I knew. And because I lived in the Caribbean, I kind of already knew that it's not like living in the United States. So you do have to make adjustments in terms of your expectations.
I forgot that you had spent, was it 4 months traveling around Mexico, trying to decide where you wanted to move eventually.
Yes.
Let me ask, why did you decide to do that instead of just choosing a place and going from there?
I'm not the kind of person that would ever move somewhere sight unseen. I know people do it, but it's not something that I would do. Also, last year was a very unusual year. We were in the middle of a pandemic. So it kind of limited, where you could go and what you could do. But because it was also an opportunity, because I was remote working at the time for a company, I was able to work from home or work from wherever. So I just kind of decided, since I was thinking about moving, why not take this opportunity to go to Mexico and get a sense of the different places that I had researched that people were recommending. Kind of went to 9 different places and, spent a week in most of them and got a sense of the place to make a decision about where I wanted to live.
And you found that was ultimately helpful in your decision making?
Very helpful. I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted, in terms of what I wanted, in terms of what I needed to live somewhere and be happy. So I kind of had criteria. I had a clear list I kind of had like a checklist of things that were important to me. So I kind of judged each place against that list as I went from place to place. And so I made a decision on where I ended up living based on being able to do that. So I found it to be an extremely helpful process. I'm really glad that I was able to do it, because I feel like I probably would not have been as successful in settling in as I have been so far if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't come and spent time and kind of lived the way I felt that I would live if I wanted to move somewhere. Because being on vacation and living somewhere, as you know, is a completely different thing. And so the things that you think about when you're vacationing somewhere is very different in terms of what you think about when you have to live somewhere. And so being able to like do that and go to each place, stay in Airbnbs, in neighborhoods, walk around and get a sense of what it would be like was very, very helpful for me.
You're the second person to say that exact thing today.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Adelia. I really appreciate it.